Hello everyone, we're back with reading Manga in Theory and Practice, and we're at chapter 5, Art Expresses Everything. Art is the mangaka's killer technique. Artwork encapsulates and unifies the four major fundamentals of manga structure: characters, setting, story, and theme, and is of extreme importance in manga as a medium. Theme and setting are defined by the art. Theme and setting are defined by the art, and the expression of characters and story relies on it. When it comes to manga, art is God. Manga aren't made with words alone and cannot lean on music or sound effects. This may be stating the obvious, but art is what makes a manga a manga. Your foremost consideration as a mangaka is what kind of art you will draw. Art is the mangaka's killer technique. The interesting part is that the art doesn't necessarily have to be good. Just because a manga is drawn well doesn't mean that a manga will be a hit. And conversely, some manga might make you think, how is something drawn this poorly so popular? This phenomenon began to arise not long before I entered the field. Previously, anyone who was a mangaka like Osamu Tezuka or Tetsuya Chiba was a skillful artist by any measure. When I started to see hit manga with art that seemed unprofessional, it came as a shock. This posed an inescapable question: why were they so popular despite not being well drawn? Or to go further, what made them different from less popular manga? The must-haves of popular manga art. When people call certain art good, I think they generally mean that the representations are authentic. Well-regarded drawings include those that have a cohesive design, accurately depict light, provide a sense of shape and space, or more specifically, they depict pretty depictions of flowers, appealing depiction of men, and many others. Of women, sorry, not men. I don't know. In other words, they are realistic drawings that provide a sense of the real thing. But in the world of manga, realistic artwork made with superior technique is often met with total indifference by the audience. So then what's the difference between the poor artwork in manga that sells and the good artwork in manga that does not? The secret to artwork that sells is that the artist is instantly recognizable from their drawing. To put it in more concrete terms, popular manga are the ones where you can look at them from 15, maybe 30 feet away and think, oh, that's so-and-so's manga. Around 10 years ago, when everyone was still reading manga on the trains, the popular manga were the ones which had that unique element in the artwork that let you tell at a single glance who drew it, even if you are standing 2 or 3 doors away from the reader. On the other hand, manga with an art style that blended with the others tended to perform poorly in the reader surveys. As soon as I made that observation, I became convinced of the importance of using an artistic style that could identify the mangaka at a single glance. Just as with handwriting, everyone's art style will naturally reflect their individuality. But beyond that, the manga's artwork needs distinctive designs and mood, realism and signification. Approaches to drawing can be broadly divided in two groups. 1. Realism. 2. Signification. Realism in art seeks an imitation of reality, like a plaster bust. A drawing in this manner, when done with skill, will be recognizably good to anyone's eyes. Signification is drawing an object in a way that is recognizable at a glance. Three circles grouped together can be recognized as Mickey Mouse, and a circle with some blue in it as Doraemon. That's the creation of a signifier. The artwork of popular manga can be summarized as effective signification. With manga, a medium that is always working toward many goals, you need to draw pictures where both approaches coexist. No matter how important signification is for sales, the pursuit of realism is needed to breathe life into your work. Much like Rohan Kishibe sliced open a spider with a knife to watch how it suffers. I'm gonna sneeze. Sorry, it just went away. I was gonna sneeze, but I guess not. Much like Rohan Kishibe sliced open a spider with a knife to watch how it suffered, some aspects of manga call for realism. It would be hard to imagine a culinary manga without realistic, that is to say, appetizing depictions of food. Realism and signification oppose each other, like oil and water, but it is possible to utilize both at the same time. This is perhaps best typified by Akira Toriyama's artwork. His style is instantly recognizable, yet his robots and gadgets are drawn in intricate detail down to the smallest parts, and with skillful technique, his characters' punches and other fighting novels have a visceral sense of speed. But other elements of his drawings are symbolized to the point of being simplistic, often leaving plenty of white space. If you want to understand how incredible Toriyama is, you need look no further than his portrait art. Portraits are typically either rendered realistically or as caricature. Realistic drawings lose the artist's distinctive qualities, but when the artist's style is retained, the portrait often no longer resembles the subject. Toriyama's portraits, on the other hand, resemble their subjects while still remaining patently his. They are a fusion of oil and water. His mastery of his craft is by all rights incredible. Not every mangaka or artist is capable of such a feat. Simultaneously, utilizing realism and signification is an important aspect of manga art, and every manga popular today belongs to this continuing movement, best represented by Toriyama. How to pursue both at the same time? So then, how do you simultaneously pursue realism and significations when they are opposing qualities? To put it simply, the important parts need to be realistic and everything else doesn't. In a sports manga, the sports scenes might be drawn in depth, but the protagonist eating a meal doesn't require the same level of realism. A titillating manga, a titillating manga might emphasize a woman's eyelashes, lips, and bust, but can fully portray the intended eroticism without realistically depicting her nostrils. Furthermore, if you pursue realism in all things, the readers won't know where they should be looking. I've made the mistake of becoming too passionate about drawing a scene and getting carried away, and ended up putting too much onto the page. When working on the climax or on another scene, when it's time to give it your all, you need to be careful not to overdraw and make the pages extensively dense. In my current serial, Jojo, I'm giving the manga a tempo, keeping the drawings light when I want to ease up, and putting heavy detail into the action scenes. Just as making everything realistic can be a problem, some genres are hard to pull off with only signification. If your goal is to create a scary atmosphere, like in horror or suspense, some images, when drawn too simplified and symbolized, might not be as vivid or frightening as desired. For example, if you wanted to convey the pain of a finger being severed. Sci-fi and fantasy are two other genres where realism is required to establish the setting, even if you are depicting an imaginary world. It's the touches of realism, like detailed machinery on a robot, that draw readers into that world. I'll go into this topic in more detail in a chapter on settings. If you keep drawing the same thing, you'll become outdated. Given that a manga with crudely drawn art but effective signification can still become a hit, if you were to ask me which takes priority, signification or realism, my answer would be signification. But there is also danger. Sometimes manga symbolized without much thought can succeed by chance. And if the creator becomes complacent and doesn't grow, the audience will come to find it outdated and will move on. In the 1970s, when I first started creating manga as a hobby, the standard was that men were to be drawn with thick eyebrows and women with thin ones. But at a certain point, men also came to be drawn with thin eyebrows, and thick eyebrows were seen as uncool. If I were to draw my male characters with thick eyebrows now, they would seem outdated. Younger mangaka can draw male characters with thin eyebrows, as a matter of course, but since I grew up drawing thick eyebrows, I internalized that drawing style and had to spend much more conscious effort in correcting myself. To me, male characters with thin eyebrows carried the image of a secondary part in a girl's manga, perhaps a rival in love or callous, mean-spirited character, and ridding myself of my internal resistance to drawing thin eyebrows on men took considerable effort. I finally got over it when drawing Josuke, the protagonist of Jojo's fourth story arc. Diamond is unbreakable, but until I did, I couldn't help but feel the looming danger of my art becoming outdated. For so long I had felt that thick eyebrows were a rule, but they weren't a rule. They weren't anything but a mere assumption. Had I clung to drawing thick eyebrows, my artwork could have appeared dated. If you want to keep developing your art along with the times, you need to make active efforts at destroying such assumptions. But in order to do that, you must first master the fundamentals of drawing. Learn the meaning of objects. While art may have trends, I don't think there are any rules like you must draw exactly like this or certain kinds of drawings are always going to be a hit with readers. Although, as I wrote above, it is important to respond to the demands of the era. Ultimately, the artist should draw what the artist wants to draw. With that said, because humans or possibly anthropomorphized animals or machines will become important characters in your manga, you'll be well served by mastering the fundamentals of drawing, still lifes and portraits. Without studying the basics, your technique and ability to express your idea will never develop. Even brilliantly gifted child artists aren't guaranteed to be able to draw such remarkable paintings as adults. If you want to, as an adult, be able to draw pictures as you imagine them, you can't avoid studying basic techniques. Distorted proportions are of course acceptable in artwork, but only when created on the footing of fundamental technique. First you master the basics, then you can tear them down The foremost examples of significations like Doraemon or Dragon Ball or Mickey Mouse all stand on this solid footing. Master the golden ratio. The basis of portrait drawings lies in the universally appealing golden ratio. If you master just that one concept, you will be able to design any. Then he shows portraits, which I'm gonna paste in here. It's about the proportions of the face. When creating a character design, remember the correct proportions. The eyes are positioned halfway between the top and bottom. You can exaggerate features as you like. If you master just that one concept, you'll be able to design any kind of human character. Let's use faces as an example. People see themselves every day. We like our own faces, and our own drawings naturally tend to resemble our own selves. There's nothing wrong with that exactly, but if you want to create drawings to which great numbers of readers will be receptive, you must go beyond that internalized sense of beauty and learn the standard of beauty, the golden ratio. A character that is drawn without the golden ratio as foundation will seem inherently strange. An untrained artist may by chance succeed at designing one character, but any subsequent characters would be indistinguishable. Or in another common pitfall, an artist could be good at drawing a face from the left side but not from the right. Any attempt to mask that only by drawing characters facing a certain direction will be quickly sniffed out by readers, who will then begin to wonder if the characters are drawn or simply stamped over and over again. Readers are unsparingly exceptional at seeing through to an artist's true level of ability. I'll let my sketch to the left briefly explain the basic rules of drawing faces. Where on the face do the eyes, nose, mouth, and hairline go? Or where on the face? It's the same with every face. Even if you change the proportions, the individual components, each always appears at the same relative location. Learn them. Once you accomplish that, you'll be able to draw heads from above, below, and from the side to create three-dimensionality. And you'll always also be able to enlarge the eyes or perform other deformations to create supporting characters with a different than ordinary feel. Learn to draw a robot with moving joints. Once you've learned the golden ratio as it applies to faces, the next step is human body. Work on sketching the body in the following order. 1. Anatomical and skeletal drawings. 2. Nudes, how the muscle connects to the bones. 3. Clothed figures. Pay close attention to two important points. The center guideline, the line that goes down the middle of the body, the placement of elbows and waist. If you can learn those elements, you'll be able to draw a natural figure, which can be rotated and twisted. That's how you get a Jojo pose. Also note that the joints are angled and when viewed from above, make a helical shape. In the case of a clothed person, gravity will create folds in the cloth near the joints according to established rules, and you shouldn't be haphazard about drawing them. Haphazard. Once you have a grasp of these concepts, you'll be able to draw characters with life and a wide range of movement. Basic methods of studying include observing established mangakas drawings, but I would also recommend looking into reference books on anatomy for artists. Aim for more than mimicry. As mangaka build their careers, there is a tendency for the aesthetic taste to stagnate and for the drawings to become dated. To avoid this, it can be helpful occasionally restrain an objective viewpoint on beauty, in order to adjust your aesthetic sense. My only word of warning, and this is something I've run into, is that if you start out by copying the works of the mangaka who inspire you, but you want to become a professional yourself, you mustn't stop there. If you're mimicking a style, don't simply do so thinking, say this artist does good drawings. Instead, try to deepen your understanding by taking a more analytic approach. For example, the skeletal structure is correct, or which part of the character design are effective, signification, and why? Or what was the mangaka trying to achieve by drawing this way? Through repeating this process, you should start to see in your own drawings what you personally enjoy in them and what you want from them. If you can make those kinds of breakthroughs, you will be able to find your own worlds to create, and you will develop an art style that belongs to you and that isn't a mere imitation. How to draw guns. Through this connects to the later topic of setting. I want to emphasize the point here. To understand the fundamentals, you must understand not just the structure and workings of the human body, but those of machinery and tools as well. For example, if you're drawing a motorcycle or a bicycle and you don't understand how the wheels are attached or where the handlebars are placed, the result will be unsuitable for riding upon, and your setting will become incoherent. If you base a robot's design on realistic mechanical movement, you can take that into account, its joints, other moving parts, to create a far more lifelike robot than those of the past with their overly simplistic rounded joints. So basically, as a note here, you gotta be a good concept artist. That's what it means to. It's always, even if you look at let's say Riot concept artists or just game concept artists in general, I think I encountered this a lot. They just they learn the real mechanics of how things work, and I mean, I'm a fan of Horikoshi's work a lot. You can see that in like Bakugo's costume. You know, he developed the entire costume based on his work with actual real, you know, it feels real. And if something feels real, then everyone is gonna believe it and they're gonna be, attracted to the world. It's gonna make it believable, so it's good. Good storytelling. Back to the reading, sorry. Occasionally I'm asked to judge submissions from up and coming mangaka. And when I read a manga that contains something like a gunman who has a gun that seems nonsensical, that's enough to make me not want to keep reading. When it comes to firearms, even if you're not drawing the internal workings, you need to understand how they work in order to put the trigger and the shooter's grip in the right place. If you don't understand that, the magazine feeds into the chamber, which lines up with the muzzle, you'll wind up with bogus looking proportions, so that when the trigger is pulled, no bullet would realistically come out. I keep a model gun in my office, but simply looking at the outer appearance isn't enough to gain understanding of the inner workings. If you can arrange for it, I suggest dismantling one for real to see when it comes together. I've illustrated this with a sketch so that you can see how the hammer strikes the back of the cartridges to fire the bullets and where the trigger and trigger finger are placed. This idea goes beyond firearms. Whatever subject you draw will have its enthusiasts. If you draw it wrong, you'll be found out and you'll hear about it. More than that, even readers who aren't fanatics will still realize that something is off with your drawing. How to draw fire, water, air, light, and stone. Fire, water, air, and light all have movement, and how to draw them is difficult to explain in words, but drawing them correctly will help. Connect your manga to reality. They will show up in every manga. I would hope that anyone who wants to become a mangaka would study these subjects. Photography can be a good resource. Fire equals drawing wind. If something explodes and you want to show the flames of the explosion, you can do so by drawing the movement of the surrounding wind. Burning objects are drawn in silhouette. Water equals drawing gravity. When an object falls into water, how does the water splash? When a cup breaks, how does the liquid inside spill out? Air equals drawing the lines of motion towards the viewpoint. By showing distance, you can convey air. Light equals drawing shadows. Stone isn't dynamic like the other elements, but drawing stone, rock, and earth is also important. Stone equals drawing shadows. Don't just show the edges, show the recess. When illustrating rocks, creating a sense of weight is important. See the image on page 192. Also keep in mind that rocks in an African desert will look different from rocks in the American West. Do the research necessary to be able to represent the differences in your drawings. A rock and mineral guide can be useful there. I constantly struggle with trying to describe with to my assistants how fire, water, air, light, and rocks are drawn. Ultimately, I don't think there is any alternative path to improvement aside from trying, failing, and studying. But you should do whatever practice is necessary for you because those subjects are of great importance to drawing manga. The paper is more important than the pen. Once you begin drawing in earnest, you may become concerned with what types of drawing instruments to use, whether felt tip pen, brush and ink, computer software, or what have you. My answer is whatever you find easy to work with will deliver the type of drawings you envision. I used to hear advice like, you have to use a G model knee pen, or mapping pens are good. But because the same tools produce different images in the hands of different artists, it simply comes down to preference. As for myself, in the past I primarily used G pens, but now I only use them from when I want firm lines, like the outlines of eyes and faces. And the other 90% of the time I use either water-resistant felt tip, pens or brushes. Because G pens contain metal, they are considerably heavier than marker pens or brushes. If you draw with a heavy pen for 10 hours a day for a week, you'll probably get a repetitive stress injury. Brushes are the least taxing drawing instrument, but it takes time to get accustomed to the feeling of their soft, floppy tips. Felt tip pens come in many varieties. You want to rigorously examine them for resistant water erasers, but in my opinion, the choice of paper is what requires the greatest care. Cheaper paper won't hold up through prolonged work. This is not the place to be cutting corners. That's not to say that there is a certain price level dividing suitable paper from the rest. Rather, you need to choose paper of quality that matches your goals. Obviously, you want paper that doesn't wear out your eyes when you look at it, but other qualities, ink absorption, tint, roughness, and so on, are the best left to your personal preference. Being told you're not a good artist. Sometimes, after you begin drawing regularly, there will come a point when you think, this isn't just working out lately. When this happens, you may become somewhat worried, but if you keep drawing, you'll be able to break through it. The very fact that you're worried about it means you're trying. For a time after my professional debut, when I wasn't yet blessed with a hit, my editors gave me various bits of advice. I didn't take their words at face value, but rather looked for the underlying problem. My drawings weren't good enough. Though my peers like Yudeta Mago made their debut with styles recognizable at a glance, I was still struggling with how I should draw. My artistic ability when I drew poker underarms was that of a kid. Even the critiques from the Tezuka Award judges went alongside of lines of entertaining but poorly drawn. They were right. I was self-taught with far too much beyond the limits of my knowledge. When I wanted to draw a black space with white lines showing through, I would alternate drawing the black and white, one at a time across the whole space, and my editor would say, "Come on, look here, your lines are sticking out from the edges. Even a child could do better, fix it." Such was the level of my knowledge that I had yet to learn that the basic technique was to fill in the solid area with black, then draw the white with poster paint. I found my style in Italy. I wanted to learn more about drawing by becoming a mangaka's assistant, but I lived in Sendai, far too distant from Tokyo, to make a commute possible, and I had to give up on that idea. After my debut, self-study remained my only option, and as I kept on drawing my manga for publication, I unflinchingly continued studying the fundamentals through sketching and any other means I could think of. It took years before my efforts bore fruit. I studied and imitated the drawings of my favorite mangaka like Sanpei Shirato and Mitsuteru Yokoyama, and made many attempts through trial and error to find my answer. But nothing seemed to work. Even still, amid the tempestuous doubt, I kept on studying the basics of drawing, and I continued to practice. You might be wondering why I felt all that was unnecessary. I wanted to draw real suspense with scenes where a needle going into a finger would feel painful. And to do that, I needed to pursue realism. How to draw the fingernails, how the muscles connected, how to give the fingers three-dimensionality, and so on, while also included signification. My breakthrough came just before Jojo was first serialized, when I went on a trip to Italy. If you were to sum up what makes my art distinctive in a single word, it would probably be the posing of figures. That is something I acquired on that trip. And since you can't draw character posing from their face alone, I always draw sketches for fans as boost illustrations with the shoulders indicating a characteristic pose. Though I did have a desire to visit authentic Western art museum, that wasn't why I went on my trip. I happened to go to Galleria Borghese in Rome. When I saw Bernini's famous sculpture Apollo and Daphne, and I thought, I wish I could draw this in a manga. I had seen pictures of the work, but sculptures have to be seen in real life to be truly understood. When I was able to see it, to take it in from the back, from below, and from many different angles, the statue's beauty and intensity overwhelmed me. If you're unfamiliar, Apollo and Daphne depicts of the myth of the nymph Daphne transforming into a tree to escape from Apollo's embrace. I felt like I could look at it forever, appreciating the artwork's wonders, how Daphne seemed to twist and rise up as she underwent her transformation, how exquisite the marble leaves were, How the sculptors had been able to fashion such a wonder from a single block of stone. Such twisting poses were rarely found in Japanese museums, and I had seen few such artistic expressions in the works of the prece- preceding mangaka. There is something sensual about such poses too, in a good way, since I had already built a foundation of technical craft. I needed only to add in what I had experienced in Italy, and in doing so, create images that reflected my perspective. Since I finally gained an artistic style I could claim as my own, I've had vastly fewer occasions to feel distressed by editorial criticism. What becomes memorable about characters' pose? Poses are appealing because they remain in people's memories. Just look at Michael Jackson. His poses are eternally unforgettable. Because characters' poses can reveal such about them, down to what emotions they are feeling, poses are an incredible important element of drawing. I often use sculptures as references, but the true masterpieces are the ones that I can see in a museum, then go home and still vividly remember the poses. By searching for the reasons of a sculpture leaves such a strong impression, perhaps its vigor, romanticism, weightness, the suggestion of skin, I can begin to see which aspects I need to put into my drawings. When posing your characters, you must take care to correctly capture the human skeletal structure and movement, rather than manipulate the character's limbs at random. You must understand how the parts of the body connect to the flow, how a person's legs move when their hips jut out, where their knees are positioned, how their shoulder moves. If you draw a character simply standing, yet their elbows and waist are misaligned, that pose is not likely to leave an impression. In Jojo, I push the limits of the human body with my character's poses. By amplifying the signification of poses to the extreme, you can achieve a form free of all extraneous elements, like with Myron's famous sculpture, Disco Bolus, and its unusual, captivating, slightly bent over angled pose of an Olympic athlete about to hurl a discus. A discus. Whenever I view what are considered the great sculptures, I'm struck by the impression that those ancient Greek and Roman sculptures chose and carved those poses as if their very lives depended on it. Make the invisible visible. I'd like to take a moment to talk deliberately about what visual art is. I believe that the fundamental role of art is to make the invisible visible. Whatever the artist wants to express, be it love, friendship, justice, or something else, these are not things that can be seen by the eye, and the artist must turn these invisible ideas into visible pictures. Music is also invisible, but musical notation makes it able to be seen, and I've heard that a score that is beautiful to the eye will make pleasing music. I find this connection between the visible and invisible deeply fascinating. Signification is also by definition a way of drawing the invisible. Characters like Doraemon, Mickey Mouse, and Anpan Man communicate friendliness and kindness through their images. And when many drawings are put together into manga, the manga as a whole can convey that which can't be seen. Katsuhiro Otomoto's Domo, a child's dream, provides an unforgettable example. Domo is a manga involving extrasensory powers, and in one scene, an older salaryman is seated on the park bench while listening to a radio. Then the next panel casually cuts to show the radio bursting apart. I could clearly sense the unseen energy of that powerful destructive force. I still remember how impressed I was that a manga could depict such a thing. It was amazing. The incredible thing that Katsuhiro Otomo did was to precisely draw each tiny part of the exploding radio in detail, rather than exaggerate the parts into something fake and easy. The common method at the time would have been to punch it up by drawing the exploded bits as rough, jagged shapes, or something to that effect. Such drawings may seem like they would be more dramatic, but they lack realism. That's what Katsuhiro Otomo's realistic and convincing drawings taught me. As a note, um, actually, one of the first panels for myself were something in the Full Metal Alchemist when Edward's metal arm exploded into pieces or was destroyed by the villain guy. I forgot his name right now. And that was the first manga study that I made. That's the first manga drawing that I did, and that's what made me want to um, draw manga. That's very interesting because he is mentioning this about Katsuhiro Otomo's. Everyone should probably just search for this. I will actually just research this. Amon and stands make supernatural powers visible. Those experiences led me to pursue the question of how I would create drawings that made the invisible visible. What I came up with was the Hammond ripple. If a character punched a frog and the frog was completely unharmed, but the rock beneath it cracked open, that image would convey the power of the character's supernatural abilities. When I came up with the idea, I felt the thrill of success. But it wasn't long before my editor told me he was tired of Hammond. I concluded that he had likely grown tired of the effect because it was only one kind of a thing. I concluded that a broader assortment of powers wouldn't have that same pitfall, and that's how stands were born. Stands are personifications of a user's inner energy, while Hammond made superpowers visible. Stands took the next step and made them into characters. I've used stands to make many things visible, moving quickly, moving far, moving through time, reading people's inner thoughts. Also moving slowly, placing cursors, stopping time. Seeing the future, becoming electricity, becoming a magnet, ignoring gravity, aging rapidly or slowly, taking souls, healing/repairing, and more. There are still strange phenomena I haven't yet made visible, and I intend to continue challenging myself to find ways to draw them. Don't try to fake it. When an artist gives form to something invisible, their state of mind will be reflected in the picture, whether they are aware of it or not. A drawing of a single coffee cup will not be purely objective. The recreation of the real life object, but will portray the artist's self. Even pictures taken with a cell phone camera reveal the picture's taker personality. Humans seem endowed with an ability to both express and detect those intangible qualities. Despite going through the process of printing and mass production, manga is no exception. And since mangaka's mental state when drawing will always be revealed to the readers, those emotions are of critical importance. Any attempt at fake sincerity will be in vain. The readers will always see through the truth. True to the truth. Some artists fly through their drawings and think they're hot stuff. But I don't think that's the way to be. It's not about whether the drawings are good or not. What leaves a bad impression is the attitude of putting on the appearance of trying hard when in fact they aren't. You see it in kanji calligraphy too, where there's a difference between something made to look skillful and something written with skill. Those kinds of artists are the only ones who think they are coming across as skilled, while the fact that they aren't is evident. But regardless of what the artist may think, manga art must not be drawn hastily or in a haphazard manner. Even when running out of time against a looming deadline, the artist must draw with care. That is the number one rule. Even if some of my art may appear coarse at a glance, if you look at the original, you would see I approached it with care. As long as I'm a professional, I won't ever phone in a drawing. And try to do so and hide it would be inexcusable. Preserve a moment for eternity. Another important thought I hold while drawing is the desire for the art to be remembered by the reader. Whenever I draw, I'm always trying to create an image that will have a deep, lasting impression on the viewer, so that they may see it again and years later and think, ah, I remember this picture. That may be why I love still pictures. A good number of mangaka say they wish they could see their drawings in motion. That doesn't interest me much. What's important to me is that each drawing is complete. The composition, the color tone, the character's expression, the line work, everything that comes together to form a picture can create an impact in a still image that moving images just can't match. What's wonderful about still drawings is their ability to create what I think of as an eternal moments. What would otherwise be fleeting moments captured within particles of pigment. Everything a person's entire life, outlook, and beyond can be condensed into a single drawing. It's an incredible thing. Just as Leonardo da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa over decades, I feel that a picture could be drawn for an eternity, at least until the artist is made to stop. That the Mona Lisa was never finished is what makes a smile so enigmatic, but no matter how many times one looks at that smile, it never becomes boring. The process of creating a drawing is to allow it to grow and mature, and therein lies the appeal of a picture. When I'm working on a drawing, I sometimes wish I didn't have a deadline so that I could keep working on it forever. Paintings like the Mona Lisa and others by the great masters of Renaissance can be viewed for hours, but I also think that it can be applied to some manga art as well. Through the work of drawing, artists can integrate many different kinds of worlds into pictures, which readers can read and reread, sometimes stopping to stare at their favorite scenes. I find that form and enjoyment to be closer to paintings and sculpture and ceramic art than it is to the fluid pictures of anime or movies. Why I persist in drawing analog. These days, many artists draw with computers, and I'd estimate that 90% of coloring is now done that way. From a technical standpoint, digital drawing has advanced to the point where it's no longer inferior to analog drawing. And it even has the advantage of not requiring as much training. Digital coloring can be performed on an ink and paper drawing with the help of a scanner, but doing the whole drawing from start to finish on a computer provides enough benefits, including easier coloring and the ability to send the data as is straight to the editors. It is only natural for some artists to choose a digital approach. The reason I still do everything on paper is that analog can always be made digital, but digital can't return to being analog. And I figure if that's the case, then analog is superior. Jojo's 25th anniversary exhibition was possible because I had worked in pen and paper. When I finish one of my manga, I want to experience the same emotions as viewing art in a museum. In other words, when I see the real thing, I feel something stir in my chest. The presence of that emotional response is important to me. When I was a child, a bookstore in my home of Sendai was selling The Legend of Kamui and had personally signed autograph from its creator Sanpei Shirato. I don't believe that seeing it would have been as thrilling. Wow, look at that. Had the autograph not been the real deal, now this might be nothing more than a matter of perception to me. An image printed off a computer screen is merely a copy, and the feeling I would get by completing it wouldn't have that same emotional impact that I get from my original art. I want to hold on to that live performance feeling. This might be a little hard to put into words, but when I draw using physical media, I almost feel like I'm caressing the drawing. I start to feel affection for my characters. That even applies given enough time to characters that I don't like when I first create them. Sometimes I'll even cry when they die. Since I don't work in digital, I can't know for sure, but drawing directly with my hands is what leads me to such unanticipated experiences. When it comes to coloring, a digital colorist can try to color, decide it doesn't work, then immediately try a different color. But when you do it by hand and you ever think something like, blue would have been better than red after all, you have to redraw the entire picture from scratch, which makes revision not particularly effective. When you draw by hand, you get the tension that comes with having no takebacks. That live performance feeling of betting everything on the moment. Because I want to hold on to that live feeling. I don't redo any picture I've drawn except under extreme circumstances. In music, live jazz is created within the tension of not knowing what will happen in the performance. And I believe the same idea can also apply to visual art. Visits from the god of manga. Sometimes may be influenced by my physical state that day or some chemical change beyond my understanding. My drawings go better than I had anticipated and make me think, this line is really great. Or, I nailed the curve on that cheek, it's perfect. When those drawings come like unexpected presents, when my art is better than me, I think that maybe it's the god of manga descending to visit me. The feeling I get when I surpass my own ability might be what makes drawing so enjoyable. When I'm drawing rough poses, sometimes I only need to draw it once to find the line I want, but other times I try many different curves before suddenly striking the right one. That moment of elation makes me want to think that thank some higher power. When I'm coloring, the colors can diverge from my original plans. I might picture something as being blue, but when I try adding a little gray, I think I like this darker color. Such happenstances might be beyond explanation for some reason. I admire the Italian technique of fresco painting. In that technique, wet plaster is pigmented, and when the plaster dries, there is no redoing it, and the image is locked away in semi-permanent form. I think what makes these works so deeply impressive to the viewer is that they were created not only requiring skill and technique, but with that live performance tension that comes from the pressure of knowing that mistake will mean failure. It's the same with the manga. When you have one of those moments where you think, I made a great drawing today, your readers will undoubtedly react favorably as well. you should recognize the benefits of digital media, but if these elements are important to you, you might want to work in analog instead. Alright, this is it, guys. That was chapter 5. Yeah, wow, great. What a great read. Every single chapter, I think this is a great book, and I'm really, really happy he talked about the art itself and what makes a great artist and what inspires him personally. It's really great to hear about it. But yeah, I think we're gonna end the video here. I hope you guys enjoyed this reading as well, and let me know what inspires you, because why not? So, have a good day or night.